What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name is Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. How you doing, Will?
Doing well, Steve. It is Tuesday here of U.S. Thanksgiving week. I know you are going to be approaching your second Thanksgiving of the year, being the Canadian Thanksgiving and American Thanksgiving.
Yeah, lucky me, right?
Yeah, double dipping.
Yeah. Just this one comes with a long car ride.
Yeah.
On both ways.
Make sure you bring your stretchy pants for that one.
Yeah, for real. But it won't be too bad. I'm used to it. It's just long. Actually, I listened to Spitballers a lot.
Oh, I feel like I've listened to it a few times, but I don't listen to it too often. How often do they do it in season?
So I think it's the same all year round. It's one new episode, which I want to say is Monday, and then Thursday is like a best of. They combine a bunch of old segments.
Gotcha. And so it's probably fairly evergreen, right?
Yeah. It's solid. It lasts a year. It's an hour.
That's good.
But because an hour, I've listened to music where it's just songs are 3 minutes, and it makes time go by slower. I've tried books.
I do appreciate a good long podcast for those rides.
Yeah, we've done Game of Thrones, and because it never ends, it also doesn't make time go by fast. But every hour, something's changing in the different segments, I find makes time go by quicker. So that and crime stuff, unsolved things, are usually 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I've got obviously a lot of sports ones, so most of the sports teams I follow have a good recap or preview stuff. But then I also think that if there's any shows that you're really into, that you kind of digging into. I know Game of Thrones does it. House of Dragon did it, where they have some recap shows. And some of them are pretty good. They can kind of break down some stuff maybe that you missed. And a lot of the ones for House of the Dragon have been good. They've had one person who's read the source material and one person who hasn't. So it hasn't been too very spoilery, but you can also have someone to kind of guide you as to what you should know without spoiling what you shouldn't know yet.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good.
So those are good ones, but no matter the show that you watch, but a lot of the big IPs like that and the Star Wars shows, Marvel shows, have different things.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. You just got to go find it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But hey, enough about that. We got start sits to discuss today for week 12. Will.
Yeah, you're here for our podcast, not the other podcast.
Very true. So let's jump right in. Quarterbacks. Starting off with a 3-option one. We don't do those too often. Matt Ryan versus the Steelers. Trevor Lawrence versus Baltimore, or Andy Dalton at San Fran. I'm glad you're going first.
Yeah, this one, on paper, it looks like matchup-wise, the Steelers are the best matchup for, to go up against. But that team with TJ Watt back, not necessarily the case. They're playing really well defensively, at least. I don't want any part of that. I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence and just hope for upside. Baltimore's defense is also pretty good, but I think he's the most talented out of the three here. All going against what I think are going to be pretty good defenses going forward with San Francisco, Baltimore, and Steelers. All defenses that usually are pretty good too. So, have a little allure that way. But I'll take the upside of Lawrence. I think he's got decent weapons around him. You have some good receivers there for Ryan and for Dalton. But I think if those teams are going to win, it's going to be because of their running game and, supporting by the pass, whereas the running game is decent. But I think if you're going to win because you're passing the ball. And I think in most of these, maybe not the Colts matchup, you're going to need to come back if you're the Saints or if you're Jacksonville against some pretty high-powered offenses on the other side.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think they all have decent floors. No one's going to go out and get you 5 points Goff could. But I just don't see the upside with Dalton and Ryan, especially in these matchups. And Lawrence could get slaughtered too, because like you said, they're all good matchups. But I'm going with him. I agree with you. I think the upside's there.
All right. Next up here, just 2 quarterbacks. We've got Tua Tagovailoa versus the Texans, and Dak Prescott versus the Giants.
Yeah, I I don't have any reason to bench Tua. He's been very good the past 3 weeks. Practically 30 points and above. There's one that's 29 in there, but 3 touchdowns in each of those games. Had a bye week last week, so they're fresh. Extra time to prep against Houston. So I'm firing that up. Nothing against Dak, but that Miami offense has been good, and Tua along with it.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I think it may be a theme here for the next two. Dak just hasn't been as good, I feel like, as we would have hoped coming out of the injury. He's thrown a couple of interceptions, been a little careless with the ball. He's done some touchdowns. We haven't seen that blow up 300-yard game. Haven't really seen any rushing yards to note. 5 for 34 1 week, but other than that, hasn't had much on the ground and hasn't had a ton of receiving yards. So you're really banking on touchdowns, and the running game's been pretty good. So I think he's not a bad play, but not a great play. Whereas, I think Tua and the next guy we'll talk about are better plays here. So I'll take Tua in this matchup.
Awesome. So we're aligned. Let's talk Dak one more time. Lamar Jackson at Jacksonville been struggling a little bit with his weapons being hurt. Or Dak versus the Giants. Who do you want there?
Yeah. Once again, here I'm going to go with Lamar. I think the upside's there, and what I talked about with Dak not having the rushing stats, we're seeing that with Lamar. I mean, only 11 for 31 the last game, but he hasn't been below 40 any other game this year except for week 1. So you're seeing the rushing totals there. You're seeing the rushing touchdowns come up as well. And he still has the ability to pass for 200 yards. I think it's maybe half of the year. He had a 300-yard game earlier as well. So you have that just pure upside play, and Jacksonville's a pretty good matchup for the quarterback. But with him, it's you have that baseline. So I'll take him here. I don't think either are bad plays, but I'll take Lamar.
I'm going to go the opposite. And when I first read it, I was leaning Lamar because I thought the lack of weapons was kind of exaggerated. But did you know in our league, he's gone over 20 points one time in the last 7 weeks? That it was against Tampa of all teams.
Yeah, he hasn't had the passing yards. He's had a lot of weeks where he's been under 200 passing yards.
That's really hurt him. And I was surprised. Meanwhile, Dak, over 24 3 weeks in a row. So I think I'm going to have to go with Dak. Definitely, it's against Jacksonville. Everything you said still applies. Yeah. Lamar could go off for 200 rushing yards. It's within his wheelhouse. But just looking at the past history, I can't pull a trigger. I'll go with Dak.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was without Mark Andrews too, and I think we're seeing him getting a little bit healthier. Snap count was getting up, and so we'll see. I think they're both solid plays. But yeah, I'll still roll with Lamar here. I think he's due for a bounce back. But next up, moving on to running backs here. Got a half PPR option. Zeke versus the Giants. I believe he finally got himself into the end zone. And then Deonta Foreman versus the Broncos.
Yeah, to me, this is floor versus upside. Zeke's got a good floor, but as we saw last week, Foreman really doesn't. But Foreman's been the one showing the upside this year. So I think... And they also announced Sam Darnold's going to be starting this week for.
That is crazy. They've gone through so many quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's been a mess. I think I'll go with Foreman. I mean, obviously, when I'm saying upside floor, you look at your projections, see if you believe in it, you make a decision based off that. All things being equal, I'll take the moonshot on Foreman. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to take Foreman as well. I mean, Zeke also limited with a knee today at practice, yesterday, Monday at practice. And they just, if they're going to make a playoff run, they're going to want him healthy, and you don't necessarily need him right now, the way Tony Pollard's running the ball. So I think that is kind of the issue for me. Pollard seems to be the 1A to Zeke's 1B, and it seems to be the opposite. Foreman's kind of that 1A, and he's going to get the carries. May not get the reception work, but I think that's also going to Pollard as well. Zeke's getting some catches, but not the amount that you're looking at. He's had, I think, 2 catches in the past 4 weeks combined, so not great. And I think you just you're getting that guaranteed work there out of Foreman. Denver is a very tough defense, though, so I think the upside is definitely limited here for Foreman. you're probably going to be banking on a touchdown and, maybe get some yards, but he hasn't had many catches himself either.
Yeah, very fair, very fair. Moving to another one, PPR here. Jeff Wilson versus the Texans or Dameon Pierce at Miami.
Yeah, it's crazy to think both of these guys look like great plays, man. Jeff Wilson, it's the story for him has been unreal. And I mean, usually you think the game script will be working in his favor versus Pierce, but the Texans have showed, hey, we're going to run the ball even if we're losing. It doesn't matter. We are going through Dameon Pierce. Now, last week, 10 carries, 8 yards, only 2 catches. Not what you want to see.
And real quick, Will, before you decide, did you know Miami actually gives up the 12th fewest points to running backs, which isn't top 10, but I think it's higher than I expected.
Yeah, because, I mean, I think fantasy-wise, their defense hasn't been good, but I think they do have talent on the defense, and I think they're getting better as well. I think they've had some injuries, so it's definitely tough. I think I'd lean Wilson here just because I think the game script's going to work in his favor. Now, there is still the chance that they, go away from him. It's a Mostert day. Dameon Pierce had only 10 carries, and that was the lowest count he's had all year. As crazy as that sounds. 10 carries. He's not had lower than that all season. He's been at 15 or more all but 3 games, including last week. So the volume is definitely there. Your guaranteed volume. I don't think he hits 4 again. Washington defense seems to be heating up, but I don't know that you're looking at the huge game blowout games too. So you're probably looking at somewhere in the 20 for 100. Maybe he gets a catch or 2 as like your upside. Gets in the end zone. Probably looking at maybe 10 to 15 upside versus single digits downside. I think I'm gonna roll with the shot on our boy Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. That's a shot I'm going to take too. Like you said, he could lose work to Mostert, but we haven't seen that since getting traded. So, wouldn't the opportunity's there, but I don't think it's going to happen. So, yeah,
for a bye week too for him.
Yeah, exactly. And everything I said about Tua and the offense being good applies to Jeff Wilson. So, yeah, I'm taking that pretty confidently, I think.
Yeah. So next up here, last running back matchup, got DeAndre Swift versus the Bears. DeAndre Swift versus the Bills. Michael Carter versus the Bears. And that's a half PPR.
Oh, this is a gross one.
Yeah,
I really don't want to start either. I'll go with Michael Carter.
Be here with DeAndre Swift.
I know
at this stage of the year.
I know. It's just you look at the box score for fantasy and it's okay, but again, I said every week it's because he scored a touchdown. He had 20 rushing yards, but he scored a touchdown. So I think I'm gonna take the matchup and I'll go Michael Carter. Chicago, an easy team to run against. The Bills, not elite, but they're not bad either. So yeah, I'll go Michael Carter. Feels gross, but that's it.
Yeah, it does. And I think what we're banking on for him is the catches, and he's had a little bit down, catch wise. Started the year pretty hot, 12 catches in 2 weeks, but he's only been above 2 catches 1 time since then, since week 2, which is kind of crazy. I think the idea was he was going to be more the receiving down guy. You're going to get the targets and catches here, but he does get the work. I mean, he's kind of hovering around that 10 yards average or 10 carries average. And, this most recent week, only 2 points against a pretty good New England defense. I think you're probably looking at more in that, 10 to 15 range from like a total opportunities with your targets and carries together. Probably somewhere in the 50 to 70 yards and hoping that he can get in the end zone. So I think, if you want, upside, I guess you can take a shot on Swift. He's probably the one that's going to have a chance to get you multiple touchdowns and big plays. Carter's probably a little safer. I think I'd be, pretty confident he's going to get me close to double digits and, maybe pushes into the 15 range if he can get in the end zone.
Wonderful. That wraps up the running backs here, Will. Moving on to wide receivers. Staying in the world of PPR, we got Juju versus the Rams. Josh Palmer at Arizona. So assuming Juju plays.
Yeah, Juju coming back off of the injury. I mean, you could take the shot on him because they definitely were using him, scheming him up. I don't think I can go away from Josh Palmer right now, especially with the injury to Mike Williams. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that, but he's been over 10 catches for 106 yards, identical receiving lines, 10 targets, 8 catches, 106 yards, 2 of 3 weeks. Bonus this week was he got in the end zone twice. So he only had 1 touchdown coming into this most recent Week 11 game. I think that kind of hurt him a little bit, but from fantasy finish, he's been trending upward, and he's getting the work. I mean, 12, 10, 8, 10, if the target counts his last 4 games played. And with Keenan Allen back, I think it opens up a little bit more for him, as this Keenan Allen's probably going to be one of the more focal points of defenses. So I'll take Palmer here.
Yeah, I'm with you. You can't go away from him. He's been too good for fantasy, and the Kansas City running backs or wide receivers is just a different one every week still. Maybe Tony misses because of the whole hamstring thing last week, and maybe that helps Juju, but Juju was still inconsistent at times when Tony wasn't there. So who knows? I'll take Palmer because I can almost guarantee he'll be fine for fantasy.
All right. Next up here, we've got a half PPR noting needing upside. Christian Kirk, that is, versus the Ravens, or Chris Godwin in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, if you need pure upside, and that's the only thing you're going for here, I think it's Christian Kirk. I think he's reached heights that Godwin hasn't this year. If this is a floor question, it would be the opposite. But, if you need that moonshot, somebody getting you 20 points, 20 plus points, I think it's Kirk. He's done it, twice this season? Yeah, 27 point in our half point scoring, 27 points, almost 23. He had a 17.5 in there as well. So some solid upside. I'll look at Godwin here. Week 10,
he got in the end
16
zone for the first time there.
That was.
I think that was kind of his big downfall. Not downfall, but drawback this season. Yeah, he hasn't been scoring, and finally got in the end zone in Germany last week. So see if he can get in the end zone here, back on U.S. soil.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Like, he's capable of it, but we haven't seen it this year. So I'll go with Kirk if upside is what you're aiming for.
Yeah, I think Kirk's the one that's going to be able to get you that 60-yard touchdown. Godwin, is capable of it, but I think he's still working back from the injury, and he's going to be more that intermediate guy. Mike Evans is your down the field threat. You could still see Godwin get in the end zone on an intermediate or a short route if they're near the end zone, but I think the idea is that he's more of the possession guy right now, at least, and we are not seeing that necessarily out of Mike Evans, Kirk. Christian Kirk's going to be the deep threat there.
Okay, last wide receiver, PPR again. Courtland Sutton at Carolina, or Kadarius Toney versus the Rams. I guess we'll be again assuming Kadarius plays. Left with a hamstring injury, I think in the 2nd or 3rd last week. Who do you want?
Tony's got some upside. I just think Courtland Sutton's too integral to the team, so I think it's pretty easily Sutton for me there.
Yeah, there's not a lot of reason to take the risk. Sutton had a few bad weeks in a row. 2 points, 4 points, 1 point. But other than that, he's been good. 10, 10, 10, 13, 13, 16. He's been fine. So I'll take that over rolling the dice with Toney, who could play and then, re-aggravates the hamstring right off the bat or is a distraction. Who knows? So yeah, Sutton pretty easily for me.
All right. Moving over to flex position here, getting our first time we're getting, I think, a pure tight end one in a while. We've got Dalton Schultz versus the Giants and David Njoku versus the Bucks.
I don't know how either of them have done, but I saw Njoku hurdle a guy last week. And I'll go with Njoku. He was solid prior to injury. I might as well just look him up while I'm talking here, but he's been solid for most of the year. Obviously had the injury. Okay, so the hurdle might have been the only thing he did last week because he ended up with 2.7 points. Not really ideal, but Tampa Bay does give up a lot of points to the tight end position. So he does got that going for him. Let's take a look at Mr. Schultz. Also had a bad week, only 3.7 points, but prior weeks were pretty good in the double digits. He's got the Giants, and they're kind of middle tier against the tight end. Looking all that up really did not help me. I think I'll go with Schultz because he feels safer to me. And Joker's probably got more upside to him. But coming off the injury, not doing a lot, that's not ideal. So I'll go with Schultz.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I think Schultz looks like one of the better tight ends down the stretch here. Doesn't really have a ton of horrible matchups. Looks to be back in sync there with Dak Prescott. And, he's only 3 catches for 5 yards his most recent week, but targets, got him, 5 or more targets, and he's been at 5, 6, and 6 catches, before last week. I think that was just an odd game, the way that they were blowing out Minnesota. They didn't really have to throw the ball too much. So I think in games that maybe are a little more competitive, they're going to utilize him more. And they don't really have a kind of a true number 2 receiver. From a production standpoint, it's really been Lamb and Schultz and the running back. So I think pretty easily Schultz here for me.
Okay, let's move into the world of Dynasty here for some trades. Straight up 12-team Superflex tight end premium, Najee, or a late 23 first.
Yeah, Superflex here too, so it's definitely helping out. Ton of premium, you're pushing down some talent. Without seeing the board, I feel like I would just take Najee for the late first, but with the quarterbacks involved, I think this is very close and probably good value for Najee. I think it's a good buy low for him, as an offense seems like it's only going to be ascending going forward. Whereas the pick, you don't necessarily know what it is. You are going to get a good prospect, but you have a lot more bustability there, whereas you kind of know what you have in Najee right now. And I think an offense is going to get better over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. We've seen it from Najee. We haven't seen it from whoever you're drafting with the late first. And I know, it's valuable because tight end premium, super flex, the value of that pick goes up. But, we've seen it from Najee. You're not going to get a premium tight end with that pick. I'll tell you that. So I'll stick with Najee there.
All right. Next up, 10-team sticking on the super flex. Lamar Jackson, or a package of Dak Prescott and one Christian McCaffrey.
Give me the package. No questions asked.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And again, I laid out the case. Lamar hasn't been great for 7 weeks now. Even if Lamar was normal Lamar, I would probably take the McCaffrey side. That's just adding McCaffrey is such a big win. So easy. Dak
yeah. I think it's more like, the shelf life of Dak and Lamar probably aren't that different.
Yeah, agreed.
And you could argue maybe there's more upside with Lamar, but Dak, has proven that he's been a really good quarterback as well. And if they can get another weapon there and get everyone healthy this season and even going in the future, he could, be right on par, if not better than Lamar going forward as well. And, the premium there is Christian McCaffrey. I don't think I could pay that if I'm getting Lamar. So I will definitely take the CMC and Dak side.
Next, or last dynasty question, PPR, 2 early 23 seconds, or Brian Robinson?
I think I'll stick with Robinson. I think we've seen the flashes. He looks aggressive and violent when he runs, and they clearly want to go with him. Don't necessarily know, how the offense is going to go. They could use a quarterback probably, but I don't think they're going to have a high enough pick to get one this year. But clearly he looks like he can at least play in the league. And those early seconds are really shots in the dark, especially in a non-super flex too. So I'll take the known quantity of Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I'm with you. We've seen enough of the flashes and then in preseason as well. I'm perfectly fine paying that price.
All right. And then moving over to a redraft question here. Rest of season PPR. Maybe swayed a little bit after last night's game. DeAndre Swift or George Kittle?
I'm more swayed by the past 5 weeks of DeAndre Swift. I don't want to pass. Kittle's had one bad week in the past 5. like the offense is clicking. You're going to have down weeks because there's just so many options there. But that beats me needing to rely on a touchdown for DeAndre Swift every single week. So I will take Kittle.
Yeah, it is insane to think that this is where we are with Swift, trading him for a good tight end, but you're not even looking at like trading him for one of the top tight ends, right? That's what I'd imagine you'd be looking at doing most of the time, but not the case here, which is crazy. But yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, George Kittle is an integral part of that offense. They're going to use him. Had that one down week, but really bounced back last week with 2 big touchdowns. He looks explosive again. And Swift, I don't know if he's in the doghouse or what, but he clearly is behind Jamal Williams in the pecking order right now.
Yeah, definitely. Last question here to close out the show. Half point PPR. Dawson Knox and Garrett Wilson or Josh Palmer?
I think I would go with the package side if you need like the tight end and you're, kind of capitalizing on Palmer. But man, he could be a league winner this year. So I think if you have the depth already, I would love to trade that for Palmer. If you need the tight end and you want to, kind of, maybe laterally trade down right now, but could be laterally as Garrett Wilson maybe gets more and more burned. But the quarterback situation is really uncertain going forward, this year at least with the Jets. So tough. I think I pivot. I think I just go at the Palmer side, just take what I think is going to be a guy who's used in the offense. But it's a close one.
Let me ask you a question. I'll put a scenario around here for you. You are the Kyle Pitts manager. Would you trade Josh Palmer to get Knox and then Garrett Wilson to plug that hole?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Unless there's something, I wouldn't mind just hanging on and getting, plugging in like a Juwan Johnson or something, just kind of piece by ear. But I mean, I guess I haven't really seen too much. I don't have Knox anywhere. Has he been pretty usable?
Knox,
just the last couple weeks, he's been pretty good.
He's been okay, yeah.
I mean, it's solid. I feel like the alternative, is just streaming, which isn't great, but isn't that much worse than if you're getting like a Kittle type of player, a guy that is going to be in the offense, whereas they definitely spread the ball around a little bit more there in Buffalo.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. If I was in a bad spot, like the waiver wire was bad, like our league, I'm pretty sure the waiver wire for tight end, I'm going to have to look into it. I'm pretty sure it's probably pretty bad. Let's look at projections. Gerald Everett, Gesicki, Ingram. That's not bad. Logan Thomas. So with those scenarios, I think actually they are pretty bad, aren't they? Wow. I thought some of them were a little bit more consistent than what they've been doing. I think I'd rather have Knox in that situation. So yeah, if I'm in that situation, I need a tight end. I think I'll take Knox, especially if Palmer is going to be someone that disappears in 2 weeks when everyone's back and healthy or something. Yeah. If I'm fine at tight end, I'm rolling Palmer until everyone comes back. And even then, I'll probably roll him out that first week.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That wraps us up here as we're transitioning to more dynasty questions, and most people are probably through their trade deadline. So
yeah, probably
looking for more dynasty trade options here.
Yeah, probably last week for redraft.
Yeah,
beautiful. Well, tune in next week. Another waiver show, another start-sit show for week 13, closing in on the end. But until then, folks, trust your board.